Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today we're tackling something that, well, it feels like it's on everyone's mind. Housing affordability.
It's everywhere.
Right. It's gone from just a recurring problem to, a full-blown crisis in so many places.
It really has. And you always see the same response.
The committees.
Yeah, communities form committees, they debate subsidies, they analyze data.
Yeah.
They do everything except, solve the problem.
It feels like they're just dancing around the word affordability.
Exactly. The discussion gets so bogged down in jargon and politics that nothing actually happens.
Which is why the source we're looking at today is so refreshing. It's an essay by Steve Rusak about Ventura County, and it just cuts through all of that noise.
It really does.
Yeah.
It argues that this isn't some great mystery we have to solve. It's governed by something much more fundamental, a, quote, simple, ruthless equation of supply and demand.
Right. If prices are high, it's because housing is scarce. It's that simple.
Painfully simple.
So that brings us to our core question for this deep dive. If the economics are that straightforward,
More supply, lower prices.
then what's the real obstacle? Why don't we just build more?
And that's where the author is so direct. He says the problem isn't a lack of land or technology.
What is it then?
He says the primary obstacle is, well, us.
And he doesn't just mean us in a general sense. He takes it a step further.
Oh, he absolutely does.
He points the finger directly at himself. He says, I am the problem. And that's what we need to unpack today. The math, the local policies, and the personal hypocrisy that's blocking the solution. Okay, so let's start with that fundamental premise from the source. To get affordability, you need more inventory.
Pure and simple market economics.
It is really that simple.
But, I can hear people pushing back on that.
How so?
Well, what about the cost of materials? Labor shortages. Interest rates are through the roof. Aren't those macro factors just as important?
That's a totally fair point, and they definitely affect the cost of a new house.
Right.
But what the author focuses on is the uniquely local choke point. Those other factors exist everywhere. The one thing a community has direct control over, the one thing they refuse to change, is the limit on density.
And that is the key. Density is the only way to scale this. It means building smaller homes on smaller lots.
Starter homes.
Exactly. Townhomes, duplexes. Not just endless single-family homes on huge parcels of land.
But as soon as you say the word density, you run straight into a brick wall.
The NMBY mindset.
Not in my backyard. It's such a powerful cultural force.
And it's not just a feeling people have. That feeling gets written into law.
Right. It's codified through restrictive zoning. The author argues that communities have, quote, effectively outlawed density.
So what does that look like, on the ground?
It's things like mandatory half-acre minimum lot sizes.
Wow.
Or rules that say you can only build up to 2 stories. Or you need 2 parking spots for every tiny apartment.
So it's impossible to build a small, affordable starter home because it's literally illegal.
Functionally illegal, yeah. And that creates this weird feedback loop with infrastructure.
Oh, the infrastructure argument. The roads can't handle it.
Exactly. Our sewers are too old. They use it as the ultimate excuse to stop any new development.
But the author flips that completely on its head. He says we have to stop using infrastructure as an excuse to stop building.
And start using it as a reason to invest.
Yes, you commit to the density first, and then you aggressively upgrade the roads and the utilities to support it.
Which requires political will and money.
And the very people who have the NMBY mindset are the ones who vote against the tax increases needed to fund it. It's a perfect trap.
So that brings us from the general idea of zoning to a really specific conflict in Ventura County.
Yeah, this is a perfect illustration of how policy and reality just collide.
And it all centers on agricultural land.
It does. He focuses on these ordinances called SR, Save Open Space and Agricultural Resources.
Which, on the surface, sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to save open space?
The sentiment is noble, absolutely. No one wants to see every farm paved over.
But what's the economic reality?
The reality is that these ordinances create an artificial cap on the supply of buildable land. How?
They make it almost impossible to subdivide large farms for residential use. So even if the county is desperate for housing, these huge, privately owned parcels are just off the table.
So you're legally guaranteeing scarcity.
Precisely. You have this massive demand, but the most logical place to build is legally walled off. So prices for the land you can build on just explode.
And he uses the Santa Rosa Valley as the prime example of this.
He does. And from a planner's perspective, it's perfect. He calls it infrastructure rich.
Meaning the basics are already there.
Yeah, the roads, the power grid, the utilities, they're all there. And despite all the talk about California droughts, he says the area has plenty of water.
But that water is all going to agriculture right now.
Exactly. It's for avocados and lemons.
So if you just look at it logically, setting aside the SR rules for a second, what should happen in that valley?
Logically, that valley is exactly where you should be channeling growth. You subdivide that land and build what he calls moderately priced, higher density neighborhoods.
The theory holds water, so to speak. It absolutely does. The solution is physically right there. The fact that it's not happening is proof of how powerful the political constraint is.
And this is where the whole deep dive pivots. We move from the logic of it all to the very personal, human reason for that constraint. Okay, this brings us to the absolute core of the essay. It's where the cold, hard logic hits a wall of human nature.
It's the moment of confession, really.
It is. So Rusak, the author, he's laid it all out. He knows the solution is breaking up these big parcels.
Pouring the concrete.
Pouring the concrete so that teachers, firefighters, the next generation can actually afford to live there. He gets it completely.
Intellectually, yes.
But then, the reveal.
He lives there.
He lives on a 9-acre estate in the Santa Rosa Valley.
So he is sitting on the very type of land that he just argued should be developed.
Exactly. When he looks out his window, he admits he doesn't see a solution to the housing crisis.
What does he see?
He sees open space, quiet hills, and privacy. He sees his view.
Wow.
So he's advocating, in theory, for subdividing parcels like his, and then admits that his parcel is one of them.
That's incredibly self-aware. He's not hiding it.
Not at all. He's using himself as the prime example of the problem. He says he knows, intellectually, that developing the land around him would help essential workers.
But...
Despite knowing all of that, he finds himself profoundly thankful that those restrictive SR ordinances exist.
He's thankful for the very thing causing the problem.
Yes. He's relieved that the water is being used for lemons and avocados.
Instead of condos and cul-de-sacs.
Because that would mean more traffic, more noise. It would ruin his privacy.
And threaten his property value.
That's the core conflict right there. He knows the fix, but because the fix threatens my view and my property value, he's glad it's not happening.
And then he just comes right out and says it.
He does. He writes, "I am the problem. I am the classic NMBI." He becomes the human embodiment of the very constraint he's been describing. So when you put it all together, what have we really explored here? We have a clear economic solution.
More density, more supply.
And it's not being blocked by technology or a lack of land. It's being blocked by these deeply ingrained, self-interested local policies.
And personal preferences. Policies that are protected by the very people who are already comfortable.
It makes this essay a kind of mirror, doesn't it? It forces you, the listener, to ask yourself that question.
Right. It's easy to understand a problem on an intellectual level. But what happens when the solution requires a real personal sacrifice from you?
Sacrificing your view, or some quiet, or just the idea that your home's value will go up forever.
Suddenly, we become the constraint we were complaining about.
And that connects to a much bigger pattern, I think. How many of our big societal problems stick around, not because we don't know the answer,
but because the people with the power to implement the answer are the ones who benefit most from the problem itself.
They're protecting their own views, their own portfolios, no matter what it costs everyone else.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to take away from this. The author's goal, as he states it, is to help young families, essential workers, afford to live in the community they serve.
A noble goal.
A very noble goal. But if the only thing standing between them and an affordable home is the view and the privacy from one person's 9-acre estate, what's the moral cost of that view?
And what does that imply about the real sacrifice required? It's not about debating policy points.
No.
It's about people who are comfortable today willingly giving up their quiet, their space, and their guaranteed financial gains for the good of the next generation. That, the source concludes, is the true and the ruthless math of housing affordability.